In this tutorial, we're going to learn to knit this little baby sundress. It's called the Fiona baby sundress, and for a free download of the pattern, you can follow the link that I've put in the video description just below the video, or you can go to my website, berrypink.com, and get your copy of the pattern there. This pattern would be appropriate if you know how to knit and purl and cast on. We're going to cover everything else that you need to know, all of the tricky parts to complete this dress. It is sized from 0 to 3 months up to a child size 2. And I want to talk a little bit about the sizing because you're definitely going to want to pick a size before you start knitting. I've found in my experience of knitting for kids, they don't always wear the size that's listed for their age, right? So in the pattern, I've given the standard age sizes, plus I've also given you the inches, the chest measurements to go by. Don't just go by the age, actually measure the kid and see what their chest measurement is, because I know, like knitting for my nieces and nephews, my sisters will tell me that this 6-month-old baby is wearing 18-month-old size, etc. So you're best off going for the chest measurement rather than the age size thing. So this is knit in 100% cotton, and you'll need 2 colors of worsted weight cotton to make this dress, and the yarn amounts are all listed in the pattern. I actually used an inexpensive yarn that I found at the craft store, and it's a brand that's commonly found at fabric stores and craft stores. I was really happy to find it because it was 100% cotton and just as nice as an expensive yarn. It turned out really cute. The other thing that's very important with getting this dress to fit properly is you want to make sure you have the right gauge. And gauge is the number of stitches that you're getting per inch when, with your needles and your yarn. Now I give you a needle size and a yarn weight, and I use size 7 needles to get 5 stitches per inch. But it could be totally different for you. If you're a tighter knitter or a looser knitter, you're going to need to adjust your needle size to make sure the dress fits as listed in the pattern. I want to show you really quickly how to check gauge to see how many stitches per inch you are getting. Let's take a look. Here's the little dress. I'm going to flatten out the pleats here so that we have something flat to look at. I'm going to take a pin. You don't have to use these little wood pins. I like these though because they go right between the stitches. You can use a straight pin. I put a pin in. I'm going to measure out 1 inch. And put the pin in, whoops, I don't have the second pin. Put the other pin in and see how many stitches per inch you're getting. And that's how you're going to check gauge. Just count the stitches between. Each stitch is a V. You can sometimes end up with half stitches. That's not a problem, just count it as a half stitch. If you are getting too many stitches per inch, you need to go up a needle size so that your stitches are bigger. I always want to make sure I get this right when I say it because it can be confusing. If you're getting too few stitches per inch, you want to go down a needle size to make your stitches smaller so that you get more per inch. Next up, we're going to talk about casting on, joining in the round, and working the seed stitch at the bottom border. So you have your needles and your yarn and you're ready to get started on the dress. And we start here at the bottom of the dress and work our way up. And you're going to start with a cast on. And I want to let you know, I suggest using a 16-inch circular needle for this, which is a really short circular needle. It'll accommodate all the sizes, and it's a nice needle length to have, especially if you're making a lot of hats and stuff. I use my 16-inch needles all the time. But if you don't have a 16-inch needle, there is something I want to show you called the magic loop method. And you can use the magic loop, kind of a sloppy version of the magic loop. When you're doing this, it's really easy, and if you have a cord that's too long for the work that you're doing, let me show you how to do that. Okay, here I have finished the bottom border and I've knit a lot of the skirt. We're not there yet, but I'm using 32-inch long needles to make this. And the way that works is I just find a place on the other side of the work and pull the cord long there. And a lot of times it'll just poke out and twist. And you see, by doing that, There it goes, it twisted. I like it when it twists because it kind of holds itself. There I made a much smaller circumference or cord length here, and I can work around until I get to this place where I pulled the cord long, and I can just find another spot and pull the cord long there. Magic loop knitting, I say this as kind of a sloppy version of it. Magic loop knitting when you're making socks or something is a much more complicated business than just pulling extra cord long like this when you want to make a smaller circumference anything, tube. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this on 16-inch needles. And I have my cast on here, and what I did is every 50 that I cast on, I put a little clippy marker in there so that I wouldn't have to go back through and count all of them again. So I cast on 50, placed a marker, cast on 50, placed a marker, and then cast on the rest of them. Actually, it goes this way. And I know that I left myself 4 more that I need to cast on. And if you need a review of the long tail cast on, I'll give you a link right here. Okay. Now to set this up so that we can, actually I'm going to do this on a pink background because this is white. To set this up, we need to join in the round, which means we're not going to be knitting back and forth. We're going to be knitting like in a giant spiral around and around, which makes this really easy. To start, I want you to set your needles up like this with your tail and your working yarn over here on the right side. Then you need to take a close look at this and make sure that it is not twisted anywhere. And things are pretty bunched up on the needles, but you can tell if it's twisted. I've got one twist here I need to pull out. Okay. My twists are gone. I'm going to get my working yarn out over the needle so that I don't accidentally start knitting with the tail. And now I need a little ring marker. I need to place a marker so that I know where the beginning of my round is. So I'll put that over here on the right needle, and I'm all ready to start knitting. And the bottom border of this is seed stitch, which is knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And then on the next round, it's purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. It makes this bumpy kind of work. It's just kind of decorative. So my marker's on there, nothing's twisted. I put my needle in. The working yarn's coming from over here on the right needle. And when I wrap that and pull it through, we are joined in the round. And my next stitch is a purl stitch, so I'm going to pull the yarn forward between the 2 needles and purl, back between the 2 needles again to knit, forward to purl, back to knit, and that's seed stitch. It goes a little slower than just knitting around, but it's only 5 rounds. At least at the bottom. We'll do it again later in the dress. The cast on row is always stiffer to work than the rest of it. So work the bottom border for 5 rounds following the pattern, and next up we're going to talk about changing colors and fixing the little color change jog that happens when we change colors in the round. So you've finished the seed stitch border at the bottom of the dress, and now we're ready to change color to the main color of the dress. We're not going to be knitting seed stitch anymore. This is going to be just plain knitting around from here on until we get to the waistband of the dress. This is awesome TV watching knitting because you don't have to really think about what you're doing. You just keep going and going. First of all, let's talk about changing colors. Okay, here's my work. I have finished, well, I'm almost finished with knitting around in the seed stitch. I had left myself just a few stitches here before the marker, so I'm going to work those. Oh, and you'll see here, my cord's pretty long, so I have a magic loop thing going on here. Okay, Now I'm up to the marker. I just slipped the marker from the left needle to the right, and now I'm ready to start using the pink. And I can go ahead and cut the white yarn because I'm not going to be using that again for a long time. So I'll cut the white yarn, leaving the end hanging there. Put my needle in like I'm going to knit. Remember, we're switching to straight knitting here. Grab the pink yarn and leaving about a 6-inch tail, just loop that yarn around the right needle and pull it through. Ta-da, we changed colors. And then what I will normally do is knit about 4 stitches and then go back to those 2 ends. I have the pink end and the white end, and I'm going to tie a knot there. That's going to stay put. Okay, now you just knit all the way around. Okay, then the next thing is, once you have knit all the way around, and here I am, you see I've knit all the way around and I'm back almost up to my marker here. Because when we're knitting in the round, we're not knitting rows back and forth. We're actually knitting in a giant spiral. And so you can be left with this color change jog where the new color is a step up from, it's like a stair step thing. And to correct that, this is what we're going to do. I've knit all the way around the pink. I'm about ready to start my second row, my second round of pink. I slip the marker and here I am at the first stitch. I have the pink stitch on the needle and the stitch just below that is a white knit stitch. I'm going to take my right needle, pick up the right leg over here, the right leg of that white stitch, and put it up on the needle with the pink stitch. Now I just knit those 2 stitches together, and it's hard to see because there isn't much work here, but it is a really smooth color transition with no stair step. And then you just keep going. You really only need to do that color change jog on the beginning of the second row after you change color. Does that make sense? You'll change color, do 1 round, and then the first stitch of the second round, you'll do this fix. And we change color a few times, from pink to white, in the dress, but most rounds you won't be doing this. Next up, we are going to talk about putting in the little cabled pleats in the dress. Something that gives this little dress a lot of its personality are the pleats here. And those are knit with a cable needle, much the way that you would work a cable twist in something. But it's just 1 cable twist all the way around. And I'm going to show you how to work that now. Here I am in my sample piece. I have knit the bottom border and all of the main color, and I'm ready to do my cable pleats now. I'm just about up to this marker. I'll knit up to the marker and slide that over, and now I'm ready to work the cable decrease round. Remember, this is all clear in the free pattern. Okay, so here's my cable needle. There are so many different shapes and sizes of cable needles out there. This is the kind that I prefer. It is wood, and it's a little bit thinner in the center than it is on the sides. And that's so that the stitches don't accidentally slide off while you're using it. If you've never done a cable twist before, this is a little bit different because we're going to be knitting 2 together. The instructions tell us to slide 4 stitches onto the cable needle, and you always slip stitches as if to purl so you don't twist them. Then hold that in the front of the work and kind of line it up with the stitches on the left needle. It doesn't line up perfectly, but you get the idea. So I have the cable needle stitches here, the left needle stitches here. I'm going to take the right needle, first go through the first stitch on the cable needle, then go through the first stitch on the left needle. Now, if you've ever done a 3-needle bind off, that's very much like what we're doing here. Wrap the right needle, pull it through the first stitch and then through the second stitch, and pull both those stitches off the 2 needles. Okay, now we're left with 3 on the cable needle. Go through the cable needle, then the left needle, wrap it, pull it through both, and then pull those 2 stitches off. So we're knitting 2 together from these 2 needles. And the last one. Okay, so now the cable needle is empty and I've done 1 pleat. So I slide the next 4 onto the cable needle and do the whole thing again. This is kind of a tedious row because you have to work this knit 2 together cable needle thing all the way around the whole row, and every 4 stitches are done with this cable pleat. The good news is you will cut the number of stitches that you've been working in half. So you were knitting, 200 stitches, it's going to go down to 100, and the knitting for the bodice is going to go much faster. There's one thing that I want to make sure that you understand. When we're changing colors again, I always tell you to knit around, because we're going to go right into this white waistband. I tell you to knit around in the contrasting color before you start the seed stitch, and it's really important that you do. It gives us a clean color break. If you go right into the seed stitch, the purl bumps will show through and make the color break muddy back and forth. So just follow the directions. It's all in the pattern. You'll finish the pleat round. You'll work 5 more rounds of seed stitch like you did for the bottom border, and then knit the bodice. And next up, we're going to talk about doing duplicate stitch, which is how I got this little heart pattern on there. Adding a little motif to the dress is entirely optional, of course, but I want to show you how to do it. This is stitched in with a technique called duplicate stitch. It looks like it's knit right in the fabric, but it's really embroidered on after the fact, which makes for much easier knitting. I included this little heart pattern in the written pattern. You can really use any cross-stitch pattern that you see out there as long as it's small enough. There are a million free cross-stitch motifs on the internet, and you can find one and just duplicate stitch it. Well, let's take a look at the color chart here. This is the chart that I give you with the pattern, and of course the blue squares are where you want to stitch. The black lines didn't come through on the print out very well, but on the screen you can see them. So really what you want to do is count how tall and wide the design is, and then place it on the dress wherever you want it. And this one is a really small heart, so it fit really nicely right in the middle of the bodice. Now, so that makes sense. It's either a stitch or no stitch, and that's how you're going to work it. So here I have this swatch because I want to show you just how to work the duplicate stitch. I'm going to take this yarn and thread it onto my tapestry needle. Trust me, this is so much easier than knitting it in. I'm going to start at the bottom where the heart starts. I like to actually work duplicate stitch from the bottom up. I think it's easier. And so I'm going to start at the very bottom of the heart right here. You want to find a V, a knit stitch like a V, and come in right at the bottom of that V. Then you want to, so you have your needle in front here. You want to skip that V that you just came in the bottom of, right there. Skip that, and then go behind both legs of the stitch just above it. Pull that through and watch your tension because this is decorative. We want it to look good. And then go back down into the same hole you came out of. You see that? You just made a V that looks like a knit stitch. Now I'm going to come in at the bottom, well actually I'm going to jump over here. Come at the bottom of the next stitch that I want to do, pull that through, then again skip that V and go behind both legs of the one above it. and then go back down into the same hole you came out of. I'll do it a couple more times here. Watch that tension. This needs to look really good. If you pull it too tightly, it won't look as good. This yarn is not the perfect thing to be duplicate stitching with. This is a bulky yarn that I'm using here and a worsted yarn that I'm doing the stitch with. Skip that V behind both legs of the one above it. Then back down in the same hole. You see here I've done the bottom of the little heart chart. Next up, we're going to talk about doing the I-cord straps and attaching the straps and doing the finishing work on the dress. If you've made it this far, you're almost done with the little dress. We just need to make these straps and attach them and then weave in the ends and do a little blocking. First up, I want to show you how to work these straps. They are I-cord straps, which I think means idiot cord. It's kind of a silly way to knit. Let me show you how this goes. I'm going to make a slip knot. And using double pointed, whoops, I need to make a little more than that. Using double pointed needles, I'm going to cast on 3 stitches. Okay, so I have 3 stitches on there. Now the working yarn's coming from this stitch over here. This feels wrong, but I'm going to slide it to the other end of the needle so the working yarn is really coming from a crazy place, way over here. I'm going to knit across. And I'm not going to turn the work. Again, I'm going to slide those stitches back over to the other end of the needle. The working yarn's coming from this last stitch here and knit across. It's always good to give this a tug as you're doing it. So the working yarn's coming from this stitch here. Do not turn the work, slide it across. And that is the whole thing. You just knit across and then slide across, knit across and slide across, and give it a tug every now and then. And believe it or not, you end up with this beautiful cord. It's like knit on around the whole outside of it. So you're going to knit 4 of these straps, and I wove in the end on one end, and then I left a long tail on the other end so I can show you how to attach the straps. If you leave a long tail, then you won't have to weave in yet another end. You can just use what's hanging here. And to do this, you will want to find the position that you want on the dress, and I put these about 1.5 inches in from the edge of the dress. Thread that end onto the tapestry needle. You will, of course, notice that I already have 4 straps on this dress. I don't need another one, but I'm going to show you how to do this on this dress as if I don't yet have 4 straps. To really secure this down, you don't want to attach it like this at the end. You want to attach the I-cord to the contrasting color part of the top border. You want to attach this whole thing down. And what I do is just grab a loop from over here and grab a loop on the strap and pull that through. And you don't go all the way through the fabric. You just go in and out of a loop, in and out of a loop. And that's it. It's not difficult. It's just kind of a whip stitch up. You go all the way up, attach a loop in the back of it here, and then come all the way down, and then weave that end in when you're finished. Excuse me. You'll do that 4 times, and you'll have 4 straps attached. Now I have a freaky little dress with almost 5 straps attached. because the last thing I want to show you has to do with blocking. You can see here that my pleats are looking really pretty defined, and that's because I did that on purpose. You can follow the manufacturer's instructions for the dress as far as washing it goes, and do a full wet block and then lie it out flat to dry or whatever. What I did is, I haven't done a full wet block on this yet. What I did was I used the iron and I without pressing down, steamed the skirt, and then I just pinched the pleats in like this. And then I let it cool off and dry like that, and the pleats ended up staying pretty well. When I do go to wet block this, I'll do the same thing. And when it's wet, I'll do the pleats like this. And when it dries, they'll stay pretty well. The dress is still cute, even if the pleats aren't really defined, but it's pretty cute to show the pleats like this. And that's it. Good luck on the dress.